This week in trading history, and so this week, what I wanted to talk about, just to change it up a little bit, because I want to hit and get some bigger macro stories in there. But I like these little company stories. But it's not a little company. But I wanted to talk Procter and Gamble, and
Nice.
Procter and Gamble has a really interesting history. And let's just kind of go rewind way back, because it goes back to April of 1837. 1837. And so William Procter, an English candle maker, and James Gamble, which was an Irish soap maker. So we got a candle maker and a soap maker. They ended up opening up shop in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Wow.
And what's interesting is the story of what happened there. So first of all, both men married two sisters, so they became like brother-in-laws. And they were trying to make the journey right across west. Who knows? They would have maybe ended up in Seattle or somewhere like that if they successfully completed their journey. But along the way, when they reached Cincinnati, Proctor's wife passed away, and James Gamble got very ill, and they both settled down there. And it was like 5, 6 months later that they each put in like $3,500, which must be worth hundreds of dollars on an inflation-adjusted basis, to launch
Well,
Procter and Gamble.
3,500 was all. Are you sure you got that figure
Yeah,
right? 3,500.
$3,596 each they put up to
That's like
launch the company.
$4
That's a lot
million
of,
dollars today. I guess
probably,
that's a
right?
long time. By the way, before we go any further, which one of them is sporting that wicked beard? Do you know
I
which one's which?
I'm gonna offer a guess that that's Gamble, but I would probably, I risk being wrong. I didn't
Yeah,
do
and
that.
so you know what is what's interesting about that beard is I'm wondering as I think about the millennials and their beard, they didn't shave it quite as low as that guy. So I'm wondering how long before that's back in fashion. It's
That's
an awful looking beard, and I think that the millennials are going to adopt that before we know it.
well,
That's my real prediction for this episode is that beard is going to come in before we know it, and we're going to be hating it.
Oh, there you go. So what is interesting about this? Okay, I mean, we went back to 1837. So when you look back, and you think, what is the one of the when you think of the original Dow Jones and the original companies that composed it, what's the first company that comes to mind?
GE.
GE. I was hoping you wouldn't say something different, but General Electric is sort of what I think of when I think of one of the oldest long-standing companies. But GE's inception into the index was 1896 in the original, but it only went public in 1892. I mean, it actually was formed years earlier. But if you think about it, Procter and Gamble was formed like almost 50 years earlier. And now Procter and Gamble not only went public the year before GE went public, so it's an older company from when it went public. The reason why we don't look at it that way is because it was only added to the Dow during the Great Depression in 1932. So GE was in the actual Dow much longer. Well, going back to like 1896 was one of the original entries. But Procter and Gamble actually was went public before GE did, and as a company with almost 180 years of history.
Wow, it's unbelievable. You know what's interesting is that you don't realize it, but most companies, their lifespan is quite limited.
Yeah.
And it's very unusual for a company to last that long. And you might say, "Oh, that's not right" and stuff. But I remember seeing a stat, and it's shocking, like how many companies from when we were kids still exist, and it's very very you can put it on your hands kind of deal. It's,
Yeah.
and this is unusual that this one lasted so long. It must
Yeah,
have been a
and
big one.
it's a great story of how they got around. And you know what, I always like to throw Procter and Gamble every once in a while in my portfolio, and it's a great company. And I just thought it was a really interesting this week in trading history.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for
Yeah,
that
yeah.
story, Patrick.
Let's move on.